Welcome to Hair Metal Revolution. Today, we're going to be talking to hair metal guru Anthony on where was he, how he discovered this music, why did he like it? Because if you're a young person, you got a keyboard, you type it in, boom, everything's there. But back in the 80s when we were kids, if you guys don't understand this kind of music wasn't on the radio. Most people did not have MTV, and even if you had MTV, you had to wait to Headbangers Ball. So usually you have a person that records 2 hours of it, you take it and you watch it. It was more a word of mouth. I had bigger brothers, so that's how I got into the music. But I'm curious because like Anthony, myself, I said this, that my brother is 3-4 years older than I am.
Yep.
And I remember at the time on the radio, and guys, this is nothing against Bryan Adams, nothing against Bruce Springsteen, Huey Lewis. Those were kind of music that was any kind of rock. That was the rock that was on the radio. And nothing against them. I don't know. I was like bored, I guess. I was bored. And when I had my brother's friend was over, he had all these tapes. There was Kiss, AC/DC, and I don't know why. I picked up the cassette Paramania of Def Leppard.
Yep.
And I put on that first song, Rock Rock Till You Drop. I've never heard guitars like, oh my God, this is speaking to me. This is it.
Yep.
And I kept rewinding, not realizing Rock of Ages kicks ass. You know, all these great songs are on this album.
Yep.
But I kept rewinding Rock Rock Till You Drop because it was like the beginning riff, that little, then the guitar kicks in, and the way he sings it, it was like, this is what I was waiting for. It was Bryan Adams, Bruce Springsteen on steroids. Yeah. So that was how I got it. I'm always curious, like, how did you discover this music, knowing that it's hard for us to even find it?
Right. Well, when I was a kid, I liked what was on the radio. So I'm 51. I was born in 72. So
I'm 51 too.
Right. So, I mean, I was into Bryan Adams. I liked
nothing against them. Nothing against them.
But it was as I started getting older and getting my teenage years, every now and then you would hear. I remember being at my cousin's farm. I practically lived with my cousins. They had motorcycles and four-wheelers and all sorts of fun shit. So I was always there. And we're in their like their huge Quonset garage where tractors are and messing around in there, and the radio's on, and suddenly I hear Cinderella Gypsy Road is on, and and I can still just remember that moment, that opening guitar riff, and I'm going, who is that? And I'm like, I need to find out who sings that song. And that's kind of when I learned that like music was a little bit different for me. Other people could just have it in the background, but if I loved it, I had to track it down. I had to have it. And it wasn't like, like some people can drive around and they're like, yeah, I'm just not going to turn on the radio. I'm like, no, I need my music, and it must be with me everywhere I go. So anyway, I mean, it was shit like that. My older brother is 4 years older than me. He liked a lot of pop stuff. He liked the Bryan Adams stuff. But every now and then he'd come home with like Kiss Asylum. He really liked the song Tears Are Falling. So he has the cassette. So I popped that shit in and I'm like, holy balls. Like, I love this. So I started raiding his cassettes and finding the rock stuff. And I just started gravitating towards the louder guitars, the sleazy rock. The very first cassette I ever bought with my own money was in 1985. It was Honeymoon Suite, The Big Prize. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's good pop rock. But the next cassette that I remember buying was in 87, and it was Appetite for Destruction. And I listened to the first side of that album for about 2 months before I ever got to side 2. Just like what you were saying. Yes. I just kept rewinding the song. I just kept listening to that side. And I'm like, eventually you're like, shit, there's 5 or 6 more songs on the other side. So, it just, and since then, guys like you and I mean, I never said goodbye to this type of music.
Why?
I still look for new bands. I mean, I don't just listen to old music. If you love music, I'm still looking for new bands that grab me, but I still care about the shit that I loved when I started listening to music. It'll always matter to me. And that's why you and I do what we do with these channels.
You know, we both got similar, of course we got similar taste, but everything you said, there was key points I still remember in my life, because you're talking about Kiss with the tears for I can't, man, I'm fucking up that word, but who cares? I remember the first time I heard Kiss was Lick It Up, the song Lick It Up, because that was the cassette that they had. But as a kid, the funnest thing was when I heard like Heaven's on Fire, like this Kiss band is great. And I remember, dude, I still remember later on in life, when I went to a record store to find some Kiss records, I'm going back like, what's this makeup shit?
Yeah.
Because I did not know Kiss was in makeup. Like, they're in makeup? What's this? You know, Rock and Roll Over, Destroyer. I was like dressed, you know, I was like, what is this?
Yep.
I'm like, oh, that's Kiss. They had makeup. They took it off. A couple members left the band. Like, shit, you mean Ace Frehley, the guy who sings Rock Soldiers?
Yeah.
Wasn't Kiss? I didn't know that because I was a kid.
Right.
But you know what I mean? When you learned that, it was so exciting. Like of course, everybody loved Ozzy.
Yeah.
I remember somebody brought over the, Headbangers Ball, and there was Black Sabbath. I'm like, is that fucking Ozzy?
Yeah.
I did not know. You know what I mean? That was so fun. That was so exciting. Like, he was in another band.
Kiss has always been one of, just a band that I gravitated to. If you see the wall behind me, there's just a ton of framed Kiss stuff up there. Anyway, but I think, you mentioned Lick It Up, and Lick It Up is the first record without the makeup. Well, at the end of the 70s and very early 80s, Kiss was like dying. I mean, their albums were barely going gold. Their concerts where they were playing to half-filled halls. But when they took off the makeup, it was like suddenly you had a brand new band. And Lick It Up, the song was a huge hit. That album went platinum. And suddenly Kiss was like pretty relevant for the rest of the 80s, even though they were, there were times when it seemed like they were copying, whether it was Bon Jovi or Motley Crue, but
they all did that. Every music is copied somewhat.
Yeah, totally.
Everything.
Totally. So,
everything. And
so I've been with Kiss since, and my first real exposure to Kiss was in the 8th grade. My cousin's boyfriend had his license and had a car, and the only 2 cassettes he had in his car was a Johnny Cougar cassette and then Kiss's Love Gun. So for that reason, I've always said that Love Gun is maybe my favorite Kiss album. If not, it's in the top 3. But Kiss, has been a part of my life since then.
There's a song on that Love Gun album called Mr. Speed. It's a terrific song. Yeah. I don't know. No, that's on Rock and Roll Over, isn't it?
Yep.
Mr. Speed, Rock and Roll Over. My apologies. Yeah. My apologies. But I just think of that song talking about Kiss that nobody ever talks about. There's so many hidden gems than the ones you already know.
Yeah.
So many hidden gems. Love Gun. That's the one they did the remake. Kiss. God, what was that song?
On Love Gun, Then She Kissed Me.
Yes, that one. Yep. But of course they changed the lyrics where it's a man's point of view.
Right.
But that was awesome. And I know what you're saying, that with Kiss after Creatures of the Night was like we got to stop with these elder type albums. Let's get back rocking. And I think that was the right decision, take off the makeup, because at that time you did have new members, so it was a perfect move that when they did. Now, your first album that you talked about, now my first album was actually Cinderella Night Songs. That was the first album I ever bought. I lived in a rundown apartment complex next to an auction. Okay. And I remember going to the auction. My dad gave me like $5-6. And at that time, I wanted my own band. And what I mean by that is everybody was already like, AC/DC's already been there. Kiss has already been there. Ozzy. I wanted the band like for me to grow up with in a way.
Right.
And I remember looking at these cassettes, and this lady goes, here's a brand new band, Cinderella. And I'm like, Cinderella, isn't that the band that sings Shake Me? I've seen that video on Headbangers Ball.
Right.
And I remember, dude, when I bought that tape, that first song, Night Songs, oh my fucking God, because it wasn't fast.
Yeah.
It was slow. It was dark. And the way he sung it, I was like, this is me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brand new. So it's like, I claimed them as my band, which you know what I mean? Like claiming we all like it, but they were brand new to my age.
Yep. The first, I must have matured a little bit later than you. The first album that really happened, and I was loving Motley Crue, I was loving Def Leppard, and I was loving Bon Jovi. But when the first Skid Row album came out, and I was probably a sophomore,
1989,
and Youth Gone Wild, I was, when you're young and you feel like you're a rebel, now you get older and you're
that was the modern day anarchy in the UK.
Totally.
It was for the young people. Like, it's time to break loose. I agree. I was in high school with that one. I was a sophomore in high school.
And like, so I said I was a sophomore. When you're at that age, you're just got your license. You're just starting to formulate your own opinions. And, you feel like nobody understands you. And maybe you're right. Then the song Youth Gone Wild comes out and you're like, that guy is talking about me. Like, nobody understands what I'm going through, so it became, and now so that's 1989. That's also the same year that Warrant came out with Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking Rich. But in 1990, when they came out with Cherry Pie, I had my first high school love had broken up with me and had broken my heart. And when I first heard the song, I Saw Red, that is when Warrant became my band, enough so that I got I Saw Red tattooed on my arm, because that was the first time I heard it. And I remember reading in magazines, Janie Lane, they'd, hey, tell us about all the songs on the album. And when he got to this song about I Saw Red, he said, this is the best song I've ever written.
He recorded it like in a week or two.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And so he talked about it, and I was like, oh my God, I need to hear this. Well, the first time I bought the cassette, the first time I heard it in the car, like, and I'll be honest, like I started crying, I mean, this girl had broken my heart. I was so madly in love. And you hear about this, he walks in and he sees his girlfriend with this guy. Now, that's not what happened to me, but I felt like I knew exactly, you're in love and it ends and you never saw it coming. And that was when I was like, you know what? I'd never had somebody who'd written a song about exactly how I felt, but there it was. And Warrant kind of became my thing from there.
Warrant, I actually have a 4 or 5 minute video on my channel about Janie Lane and all that, because in 1989, Warrant was, of course, they were touring with Motley Crue, but on off days, off days, Warrant would do some headline shows.
Yep.
And at the time, Motley Crue wasn't coming to Fresno. Warrant was coming to Wilson Theater, a small, like 4,000 or 5,000. Yep. And we all bought tickets. Like I said, any band that comes, it was an event. And we're all curious, like, how's it going to work? They're, they only have one album. Yeah. But when we saw Warrant, I always, when I look at frontmen, I always say like the perfect frontman, David Lee Roth on stage, Bret Michaels. Janie Lane does not get the credit like he does with those singers, because he knew how to talk to the crowd. He knew how to get them up, get them down. And my God, I'm telling you, dude, Warrant kicked ass. And there was a part of the show, I remember they're doing a medley, and he did Judas Priest, Living After Midnight, talking about, this is the song where you lose your virginity to. I mean, you're a kid, you're like losing your shit. I mean, because the band, they didn't dance, but the way they move on the shoulders, they were a full act. They didn't need it, all those lasers or not. I mean, they kicked your ass. And on that tour, they actually did Uncle Tom's Cabin. And that song was awesome. And I remember this. Now, I don't know. It's a legend story. We don't know if it's really true, but Warrant, Janie Lane says, you know, this fucking town doesn't get the respect that he deserves. We're going to tell the Motley guys that they need to come to Fresno.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they did, if it worked, but when they left, like a month later, Dr. Feelgood coming to Fresno. Like,
oh, really?
Did Janie Lane really talk to the band? You know what I mean? You don't know if they did or not, but
sure.
But we, in our minds, we're like, yeah, he did. He did.
Oh, totally.
They did.
Totally.
Now, of course, when they came to Fresno that time, it was Faster Pussycat. They were the opening act.
Sure.
And of course, I told this story on my channel that we were drinking coffee.
Oh yeah.
When we were kids back of a truck, and we pull up to Selden Arena. We were throwing up, but we got up. We went into the show. Unfortunately, we only saw Faster Pussycat when he's out with his big chain doing Babylon.
Okay.
So we didn't get to see Faster Pussycat. We kind of missed it. But we were there for Motley. No Fist of Faster, but Motley. They kicked our ass. And I also told this story, Anthony, that we were, you know, we didn't have money. So we were at the booths. We were selling shirts. And on the side, there was 2 Faster Pussycat shirts, like just hanging there.
Yeah.
And I know we shouldn't do this, but we did. We pulled the 2 shirts off. And we walked around the corner and said, hey, we bought these shirts, but the guy gave us Faster Pussycat. We wanted Motley Crue. And we got it exchanged. So in a way, we're like, we returned the shirts.
Yeah.
And they rewarded us.
Right. That's crazy.
But you know what? There's certain things that we were all stupid on. Now, I saw Warrant again, and this is going to be weird because in 1995, we moved to Seattle, the state of the grunge era. Yeah. But Warrant played in Seattle, and it was so weird because it's like the first time I really saw the effects of grunge. What I mean is I saw Warrant with 4,000 or 5,000, and we were watching Warrant on a small club.
Yeah.
Like it was like 500 people.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what, even though there was 500 people, and the reason I always have respect for Janie Lane, he treated it like it was thousands of people there. Yep. He did not like, small crowd. Let's just do our songs and get off stage. He gave us a great fucking show. And then Anthony, after the show, my friend who rode up from California went with us to see Warrant. Somebody behind him puked all over his back, and like, oh man, like, you know what? That's a rock show. You never know what's going to happen, right?
Yep.
But Warrant will always have a special place in my heart because Janie Lane is a first-class singer, and it was sad that the struggles he went through. And I remember, you know more about him than I do, that he actually was getting his life straight. I don't know, TV show. We all seen the weight loss show. We saw all that, and I know he wanted to get better because he had a daughter.
Yep.
But what happens to most of these cases that when you get off of something, and if you have a relapse, your heart can't take it.
Yeah. And
it was just sad that we lost him way too early because I think he would have got it all together. They would have done it because he's such a great fucking writer.
Yeah.
He's an artist.
Yeah. Well, I've said before, I mean, even if the dude wasn't a rock star, like I could see him right now, like writing ballads for country singers, you know, and writing,
or a producer, executive producer behind the scenes, engineer.
Yeah.
Because some of them have ears and eyes. They know how to do it.
Yeah. Butch Walker from South Gang is kind of an example. You know, he's a producer. He does solo stuff. He still does the Marvelous Three, and the guy's, you know, writes songs. He's written for other people, and you know, if Janie just could have faced his demons, but I saw the first time I saw Warrant was in '92 on the Dog Eat Dog tour, so they were definitely, you know, it wasn't the days of cherry pie. There was probably 3,000 or 4,000 people there. Then the next time I saw them was on Ultraphobic. Now, Ultraphobic and Belly to Belly, I bet I saw Warrant 10 times over like a 3-year period between Fargo, North Dakota, and Minneapolis. And you're right. He was always on. He never missed notes. I was telling, go watch the pay-per-view. They did a pay-per-view concert in 91 with Firehouse and Trickster. And if you want to see a musician that had an audience in the palm of his hand and never missed a note, go watch old Skid Row. I love Skid Row. Sebastian Bach misses tons of notes. Janie Lane never did. So I think he's the ultimate frontman. But anyway, when you started seeing him in 95, the shots of tequila started happening more frequently. He still wasn't so fucked up that he, was bombing. He was still awesome on stage, but the alcohol became a little bit more prevalent then. And, and you're like, man, if you're doing that every night on a tour, your body is going to shut down eventually. And it did. I mean, he was only 40, 47, 48. He died in 2011. And he should still be out there doing it, but it's a sad story. I did a whole entire video.
You did
on the core.
That's how I found you.
My life.
And I remember seeing the video of you walking up on stage with them. I mean, that's got to be incredible.
Yeah. I have 2 Warrant songs. I have I Saw Red, and then Stronger Now. And first, so on the Ultraphobic tours, we would, they're playing in clubs, 500, 600 people. So we would always be right up front. And my buddies, and I'd wear a tank top because I wanted him to see my tattoos. And my buddies and I were like, hey. So if he saw him, I got pulled up on stage a couple times. I got to come back on the tour bus, and he bought you guys some beers too. Oh yeah. I mean, they would feed us drinks and shit. So they were all, and that wasn't an easy time for the band to go from being arena rockers to playing in clubs, but they were still so appreciative of people that would come see him play. So I'll always treasure, and that's definitely when Warrant kind of became, my band, because I mean, we were the fans that didn't bail on them when they weren't all over radio. There's a group of us that stayed with them, and so Janie Lane will always be special to me, and it's just a sad story.
It is a sad story, and I don't think a lot of people understand. When every time the grunge talk comes up, and listen, I got nothing against grunge bands. I actually live in Seattle now. I used to love Alice in Chains and all that.
Right.
But the thing is, I keep telling people, well, they wrote first real lyrics. I go, first of all, everybody had cheesy lyrics, great lyrics or not. Come on, fucking Taylor Swift writes about her breakups. Don't give me that shit that somebody's better or not. I mean, I'm not arguing with somebody. I'm like, have you listened to Poison's Something to Believe In? About a veteran, because I'm a veteran coming back. I mean, there's some serious stuff. And I keep telling people that if it wasn't for bands like Poison, Def Leppard, and all these, they're the ones that bridged the gap where radio started playing them. I mean, people make fun now of like Every Rose, Pour Some Sugar, but those songs crossed over, opened the gate, and now music radio plays everything. It was the fucking rock and roll hair metal bands that broke it. They were like the middle between heavy and pop, and they broke that gap, and they don't get the credit for that at all. Radio wasn't the same without them.
When people would say, well, the grunge artists are writing about more real topics, I would always say, could a grunge band write a fun song or a happy song? No, they couldn't. They could only write about the darker shit of life. But with Poison and Warrant and bands like that, you had some goofy shit. But I was goofy at times, and I was depressed at times, and they would address those things.
But are we supposed to be happy?
Life is about highs, and life is about lows. And, a lot of the hair bands would cover both of those. And with grunge, you were only getting one of them. And that's not real life.
See, and one of the reasons why I love Alice in Chains, because when they interview them, they used to say they open up for Poison. They went on tour with Van Halen. They just wanted to play. That's why I have respect. They never shit on other bands. I mean, Contrail still plays with Sammy Hagar from time to time, going to Cabo. The birthday bash. Actually, I did go one year to the birthday bash at Sammy Hagar and Cabo Wabo. And let me fucking tell you, oh my God. I remember Smash Mouth singer was there. Flea, Tommy Lee and the drummer from Red Hot Chili Peppers, I forgot his name. They were all there jamming. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this music, where they actually embrace. And if you ever watch Bret Michaels solo, like his Mardi Gras stuff, he has other bands come on stage. It's a party. Yeah. Isn't that what life is about, having a good time?
Yeah. And I don't listen. I mean, I don't listen to music just because I'm depressed. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I want, I want the happy, goofy shit because, and I do like some grunge. I do. I didn't like the bands that would just come out and talk about how shitty hair metal was, because I wanted them to be able to coexist. Why could you not like Nirvana and Cinderella?
Yeah.
But it seemed like a lot of people that were into the grunge scene and some of the grunge bands themselves were like, no, like that shit is not real music.
But what's weird is I didn't mind that as much just because Metallica, no, we all love Metallica, but they did the same thing. They were bashing Rat. They were bashing Poison. Fucking Lars threw darts at Kit Winger's face. So what I mean is all bands, for whatever reason, they talk shit about each other until they get a little older and they realize that's just stupid. It's all one type of music. It's all music. It all breaks down from rock and roll, you know?
And there's room for everybody. And I love pop punk. I love like shit. Hey, look, fucking a thumbs up. When hair metal was going down, I started to like bands like Collective Soul and Soul Asylum and the Gin Blossoms. So I mean, and I loved hair metal. So
that's us
like
at our 20s age. Yeah, in our 20s age, they came up and I never had a problem. I liked them all.
Yep. Totally.
I loved them all. I'm trying to think here. The last thing. So, in 2024, I'll tell you what. It's so cool to see a lot of these bands still fucking rocking and kicking ass. Not in 2022, I saw Poison, Motley Crue, and Def Leppard Stadium Tour, which kick ass. I know some people are saying Motley are using tracks. I don't know that for sure. But that's another. I did see Kiss last year. For the In the World tour in Seattle. Yep. Now, some people make claims that they're using tracks. I don't know, but I don't get involved in the track talk. That's and all that. But I will tell you something. In 2024, these bands have been making some great music. I liked the last Dawkins album he came out with. Fucking Ace Frehley. I loved his last album, Cherry Medicine. Yeah. I mean, 10,000 votes. It was like listening to being fun again. And listen, I like Green Day. I've always liked Green Day because I grew up with them. Because I was a senior in high school when Green Day came out, and their last album, I forgot what it's called. Yeah. They went back to the old roots of the old style, and I love it when these bands. So, like when Motley Crue came out with their new song "Dogs of War,"
I shit on it on my channel.
I'm not saying they should have copied what they've done in the past, but Def Leppard, they did it with Kick, and that song fucking rocks. Yeah. Because I miss that happiness. Yeah. That just fun going out. But I see bands, kind of doing that again. So I feel there's hope of that style still being existent. I mean, listen, we got Hellstorm, Pretty Reckless. A lot of these, there's a lot of bands now that still kick ass. But like you said, we love the new, but we got to keep our old alive.
Right. And, I mean, if you love music, there's no way I could just sit and listen to music that I liked when I was young. I would get bored. So I revisit it frequently. I love when my followers share like, dude, have you checked out this album? Because there's still a ton of old bands that I probably never heard of. I mean, I know a lot about hair metal, but these days people will still be like, dude, go check out this album. I'm like, what? When did that come out?
Yes.
Like, so I love that, but I still love finding new bands. I mean, if you love music, you love music.
You love it
through and through. So
I did that with Fastway Trick or Treat soundtrack. I made a video of it. People like, I never knew that existed.
Yeah.
Hey, there's great music. You just got, just listen to people
Yeah.
and all that. Well, again, man, I appreciate you coming up here. I like to know people. I like to do a show like this because I like to learn the inner side. And when I saw that video you did, you're on stage with Janie Lane.
Yeah.
I mean, that was fucking awesome. So now I know that you have a connection getting into these bands. Can you fucking call Brett Michaels up and say, hey, let's get Poison back together for 2025, but don't open up fucking headline.
Right. And I wish I had that kind of connection.
I know.
But I know that there has been talk about 2025 Poison getting back and doing like
I heard that talk too, but I want them to be the headlining act.
Right. Agreed.
I don't want to hear 45 minutes. I love their songs. I want hour and a half, 2 hours of them.
Back in the early 2000s when Poison was always doing, I think if they called it the Glam Slam Metal Jam or whatever it was, and they had Cinderella open.
2006.
They would
saw them in Virginia.
Yes, they would have like Poison and 3 other bands. So one year Warrant was the big, and then they would have like Enough's Enough or something. But Poison and 3 other bands, and Poison be the headliner. Do that shit. It will sell a lot of seats.
Yes.
I guarantee it.
Yes. So, please, Brett.
And
headline.
And
Don't be the opening act no more. Don't headline.
While we're at it, Poison, how about a new album? How about some new songs? It's been a long fucking time.
It is. I agree. So beyond that, people, I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope if you never met Guru, that's the Guru. That's Anthony. His channel kicks ass. It's fun. I love him having these guests. They go he usually does top 10.
Yeah.
I do top 5. I do shorten it, but he does a lot of top 10s on different kind of album topics, and it's great. Like I love the one you guys did, albums after grunge. What were those hidden ones?
Yeah.
I love that stuff like that because that's the stuff that gets missed.
Totally. And that's generally my favorite thing to talk about on my channel are the bands that never, that came out too late in the game and never made it big, but had albums that were just as good as, I mean, I think we're up there with the Appetites for Destruction, the Hysterias, and I'll like Wild Side, Under the Influence, Sleaze Bees, a ton of great bands that never got famous but deserved.
Sleaze Bees, Paradise. That's so I remember. No, I can't sing. You guys want to hear me sing?
Yeah,
but
so
man,
that's my favorite stuff to talk about, though.
So again, people, we are taking the music back and giving it the respect that it deserves. I'll see you all next time on Hair Metal Revolution.